Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Everybody, welcome back into Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We're going to check in with the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office, and Lieutenant Blake Tabor is here. Tell us about a couple of incidents that have happened around here. A couple of were violent incidents.
Absolutely. Been a pretty busy week for us. So we'll start off with the first incident that happened on April 10th. It was shortly after 9 p.m. Our patrol deputies were called to a residence in a 200 block of Water Plant Road, where we ultimately made the arrest of a Taylor Anthony Fournier. He's a 29-year-old male from Houma. You see him here. Ultimately, on that particular night, patrol deputies responded to reports of a disturbance at that home. When we arrived, we quickly discovered the person of a 54-year-old male. It appeared that he had a pretty significant stab wound to the upper torso. We immediately got in touch with the call taker at that particular location, who was a witness to the incident. She quickly identified Taylor Fournier as the suspect. As the story goes, we learned that Fournier and the unidentified male subject got involved in a disturbance inside of the residence. The male left the residence to wait in the vehicle for the call taker, or excuse me, for the caller. And then Fournier engaged that particular victim again, and that's where the stabbing took place. So ultimately, that male was transported to an out-of-area hospital, where it's my understanding that he is recovering from the injuries. Nothing life-threatening at this point. But again, that could have been very serious. So Fournier has been arrested for attempted second-degree murder, and he is currently in jail at the Terrebonne Parish Criminal Justice Complex on a $250,000 bond.
Yeah, I mean, and look, stabbing is a very personal crime too. It's
Absolutely.
It's a serious deal. So a 29-year-old there. Next one is a 45-year-old is missing right now, who's actually doesn't live here right now.
That's correct. So this one's a pretty interesting case, and again, this is on the heels of the discovery of Mr. Esco, who was a missing person for several years, that we found his body. That in no way is our belief that that is what happened to Miss Davis at this point, but we are currently searching for a Tiffany Lynn Davis. She's a 45-year-old female, originally from Houma. You see her photographed here. On April 3rd, we made contact with family members who wanted to report her missing. At that time, we learned that Ms. Davis had moved from the area approximately 3 years ago to the Los Angeles, California area, where she had maintained contact with family members throughout the duration of that time, up until a point of about 6 months ago, where all contact was stopped. So again, that led to her family members contacting us, reporting her missing. We do not know her whereabouts at this particular point in time. We, of course, are doing our due diligence to contact authorities in that particular region of, United States to see if they can provide some assistance to us. But at this point, she is identified as a 5 foot 8 inch in height female, 150 pounds, with black hair, brown eyes. Again, you saw her photographed. Our hope with this particular case is that maybe there is someone here in the general area that she has maintained contact with, and maybe she is choosing to not maintain contact with family for whatever reason that may be. But that is the hopes of this, is that maybe she had some family or friends that know her whereabouts.
So when you call out to Los Angeles, would they would start doing the missing persons as well?
That's correct. So they're going to conduct their own investigation there based on the information that we have here to see if they have anything located in her database, or she's been contacted by authorities there, or has some sort of history with that agency. And of course, they would do their due diligence as well.
And again, people around here are still wondering what's going on.
Absolutely.
And it would help for those folks to know one way for sure.
Absolutely.
And the third involved unusual. Look at the suspect in this case, 87 years old.
Absolutely. So again, when people hear of this, they think that maybe we got the age wrong or something happened. But ultimately on Friday, April 12th, in the early evening hours, we were contacted by a call taker who was very frantic and saying that she was being shot at inside of her home. She quickly identified the suspect in this case as an Arnold L. Hunt Jr., an 87-year-old male from Houma. You see him photographed here. Ultimately, we received multiple calls about this from local neighbors who also heard gunshots coming from within the home, who also alerted us to the incident. Once we arrived, again, we surrounded the residence. Perimeter was put in place by our SWAT team, or at least a few members of our SWAT team. And of course, we did not hear any gunshots at that time. Of course, had that happened, our response would have been much different. Sure. At this point, we began using means of calling Mr. Hunt from the house, which he refused to do so at first, but ultimately cooperated and exited the residence. At that point, he was immediately taken into custody for the investigation. Deputies quickly located an elderly female who was inside the home. She was frightened, but thank God not injured. And of course, once they entered the home, they found some evidence to support the fact that a weapon had been fired inside the home. Ultimately, there was at least 4 shots fired inside of that home, some of which were into an interior bathroom door where the female was hiding to sort of get away from Mr. Hunt. So ultimately, Mr. Hunt was interviewed. He admitted to his involvement in the case, and he was arrested for attempted second-degree murder, and he remains jailed at our parish complex on a $1 million bond.
Wow. When an 87-year-old to be incarcerated like that, is that a little different as well?
It is very different. And, there's a lot of different circumstances which could have led to this. This is certainly not normal. But again, our investigators are doing their due diligence to see if there is any other circumstances which could indicate, what caused this incident.
Wow, very, very interesting. We'll certainly be following that. Well, Blake Tabor, thank you so much for your updates.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll be right back with more Bayou Time right after this.